Hello and welcome to Auburn University's Geosciences Advisory Board, as we like to say, the GABS, first and hopefully one of several podcasts. Today I have with me GAB members Tim Demko, Wesley Deal, and Bob Fuzak, and we're going to talk about our October 23 field trip we did to the Wadley Crushed Stone Company in Wadley, Alabama. And I definitely want to thank our field leaders who put this together, and that is Bob Fuzak, who's on the podcast with us today, and of course, Dr. Bob Cook. So just a little bit of background. Bob, can you tell us a little bit about an overview of the quarry, what they do, where it's located, what the products are used for?
Yes. The quarry is located in the Oman trogomite. The trogomite is essentially using a Streichhausen table, normalizing quartz, potassium feldspar, and plagioclase. It has less than 10% potassium feldspar, 30 to 60% quartz, and of course 90+% plagioclase, which puts it on the far right side of the triangle in the tunnelite field. We opened the quarry in 2013. In conjunction with opening the quarry, we laid 15,500 feet of rail spur. We can bring in 3 unit trains at a time. And initially, our major product was Bella stone shipped by CSX. We also produce a number of other products, ranging from just crusher run that's put into fill and whatever, and then a number of size products. They range from ASTM #1 up to an ASTM 8910. The smaller the ASTM number, the larger the upper size of the project or the product. Probably our most common size product is number 67 stone. Top size would be 3/4 inch. It's used primarily in ready mix concrete and asphalt. We also produce manufactured sand, which can be used as asphalt sand in the hot mix asphalt. We produce a wide variety of erosion control stone, i.e. riprap. We are approved by United States Army Corps of Engineers as a producer. We ship product by rail to virtually every state in the eastern U.S. That includes Maine, Illinois, Indiana, Florida, and all points in between. We have an asphalt plant on site. We provide all of the aggregate for their hot mix asphalt. Last year, we sold 1.2 million tons of rock, which puts us into the large quarry category. I think that about sums it up quickly.
Awesome. So when we were there, I know, Tim, you took particular interest in looking at the rocks in the quarry and noticed some inclusions. And you talked with Bob about some of, the aggregates and percentages that you could or could not have. And you found some pretty interesting things in a couple of the rocks, some of the biotites. What else do you remember seeing when we were actually looking at the rocks that were being quarried?
Well, start out with Bob, both Bobs, Bob Cook and Bob Fuzak, both gave us a great introduction to the geology of the quarry. We did an overview stop and they pulled out the geologic map of the part of the state, and we could see that the trondhjemite was part of the Piedmont terrain and was intruded into metasedimentary rocks, some of which we saw in the railroad cut. And we had a nice discussion about the timing of the intrusion of the trondhjemite, and looking at some of the features in the quarry and some of the timing relationships that we could see on the map, and then some of the fabrics that we saw actually within the trondhjemite within the quarry. I think we kind of collectively came to the to the conclusion, and it wasn't surprising, that it was probably synorogenic, that the trondhjemite was intruded at the same time that there was mountain building going on. So it was happening, probably, at the, mid-crustal to lower upper crustal levels at the time when the metasedimentary rocks were involved in the folding and faulting as part of probably the Alleghanian orogeny. And so it was really cool to see that sort of from the, in its context on the geologic map, and seeing these blobs of trondhjemite, through that part of the state and that part of the Piedmont, and then going down to the quarry and seeing, sort of the megascopic to macroscopic manifestations of that, and that we could see some banding and some, sort of gneissic textures. Definitely not, something that you call a metamorphic foliation, but sort of getting there. And then Bob had some great thin sections that we also saw pictures of, and he included in the guidebook, that also showed this sort of fabric at the micro scale too. So we went all the way from the geologic map scale, sort of almost sort of the regional scale, down to the outcrop scale, and then finally down to the petrographic scale. And it was really cool and interesting that all those lines of evidence sort of pointed us into the same sort of conclusions. So I thought that it was really a really well designed field trip, and I have to give a lot of praise to both Bob Cook and Bob Prusek for their explanations and the materials that they provided to make all that pretty clear.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. How fascinating it was. I'll admit it, when we first said we're going to a stone quarry, I was like, well, what are we going to see there? And I had no idea what a complex operation too was all contained there. And Wes, I think you and I were looking even at like the various crushers and the sorters to the washing, and we even, they have to wash it to a certain, get the fines off, and then the computerized loading into rail cars. I don't know what you thought was the coolest bit, Wes, but I thought the whole overall process was truly fascinating.
Well, to follow up on that is I agree. I knew nothing about quarrying, what all the material, all the rock was going to be used for. But I thought one of the most fascinating things, and of course I didn't understand the scales, et cetera, but the testing that has to be done on the stone to come up with the quality, whether it's how much is going to break down during the excavation and processing, the specific gravity of it, the polishing characteristics, which I think is an interesting term for that. So I found all of that discussion about how the rock quality is measured so that it can go into the various products. And so that was fascinating to me. And Bob, if you want to add on to that a little bit, I would appreciate that.
Actually, I think most people, when they think of crushed stone, they just think it's people out there with hammers making little rock out of big rock. And of course, it is much more complex. And the other thing to remember, and I think very few people even stop to realize this, but almost everything that we touch, where it's either from mining or it's growing, we estimate normally when we're trying to estimate a market that each person in that market area will consume about 13 tons of aggregate annually. In other words, all of your sidewalks, which are made out of ready mixed concrete, they contain somewhere between 85 and 90% aggregate. The slab your house sits on, concrete roads, your hot mix asphalt, your asphalt roads, they contain between 90 and 95% aggregate. So we're virtually standing, walking, sitting on aggregate almost everywhere we go.
And another thing I was really interested in was how precise both the dust content and the sizing of the aggregate for use on the CSX rail yards and the computerized loading of those. And I actually reached out to my brother, who is an engineer on the railroad, and I had sent him some of the photographs of that part of the process. And he was truly fascinated and was telling me that each one of the Herzog ballast cars that the aggregate is getting direct loaded into has a GPS device with an electrical cable that then is hooked into a computer system by the railroad. And as the car goes over the tracks, they can tell the exact density, distribution of ballast under the rail, and can automatically read via their computers if ballast is needed. And so it's truly a fascinating, intricate process from start to finish, really. And then I was also interested on, Bob, how much of the hot mix asphalt was recyclable. So, you always think of, how do we make our processes more green? You had quite a bit of material, up to a certain percent, I believe you said, could be recycled and reused in the hot mix.
Yes, and if you've ever driven down the road and you've seen a sign that says rough road ahead, or you see trucks backed up to this big machine, that machine is basically what we call milling. It's grinding off the upper surface of the asphalt. And then that's hauled by truck back to the asphalt plant. And then when we design a hot mix asphalt mix, we're allowed to put up to 25% recycled asphalt back into that mix. So virtually all of the asphalt that is on the road is reclaimed and put back into another road.
Wow.
And let me mention also, I remember one time we had a consultant at Wadley that saw that wrap and said, "Oh my God, that's an environmental nightmare." Hot mix asphalt is not environmentally unfriendly. San Diego has lined the bottoms of their reservoirs for drinking water with hot mix asphalt because it's impermeable.
Interesting. That's interesting because it kind of flies in the face of polychlorinated, your polyaromatic hydrocarbons, your PAHs, you always associate with your asphalts and your road bases. And so many facilities trying to say that the PAH is detected either in surface water or soils or from the roads and not from site activities. And that's interesting use right there, that if it's safe to line drinking water, that, maybe that's not the only source for them.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, we want to keep this short. Wes, Tim, do you guys have anything else you want to talk about with respect to our wonderful field trip to the Wadley Crushed Stone Quarry?
I just think it was another great field trip, and I thank Bob for coordinating and leading it. And I learned a lot, and I think everybody that attended learned a lot about a topic, about the stone quarry that really didn't understand beforehand. So thank you.
Agreed. Tim, anything to add?
No, I completely agree with Wes, and I think it was a great effort from both the leaders, and I think they set the bar pretty high for future field trips.
Yes.
I agree. Thank you, Bob, and thank you, Dr. Cook. Thank you, Wes. Thank you, Tim. Just so people know, we do have our GAB meetings twice a year, and we have a field trip associated with each one of these meetings. So typically we have at least one meeting every year in the Auburn area. So if you are near us when we're having a field trip, everybody is welcome. And hopefully we will continue this series of podcasts, whether it's on a field trip or someone's thesis or dissertation, or just something else someone saw on vacation, or anything else of interest. So I want to everyone for listening, and thank you, gentlemen, for participating.
Thank you, War Eagle.
War Eagle.
Thank you.